So maybe that's my shtick. I have a different name every time.
Okay, it's recording.
Hello, I am book chopper. I don't know what I can do. What was Lion done? No.
Hello, this is Geek Dad, and
This is Cheeseburger.
and we're coming to you live from the Crap Shack once again. No, let's stop there. Let's do that again.
What's wrong with that? I like that.
No.
The crap shack.
The crap. No, this isn't crap. This is beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, the man cave.
Yeah, the man cave.
The man
Let's
cave.
do it again.
Okay.
This is all staying in, by the way.
Hey, this is Geek Dad,
And Cheeseburger.
and we're coming to you live from the man cave.
The man cave, not the crap cave. The man cave. Okay, so we wanted to have a little chat about Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame and what you thought about it. You have an interesting perspective, which is you watched it, what is it, about 3-4 months after all the reactions, all the fanfare, and I'm really interested to think, just to get to know what you thought about the film.
Yeah, well, it's been a busy time, having a toddler, and I can't get to the cinema as much as I used to. I think I wasted my most recent cinema visits to see Solo and things like that. And
What a waste of time.
I was just so busy. And so, I'd been watching during, pre-parenthood, Phase 1, Iron Man. Of course I saw that at the cinema. Captain America.
I feel the Phase 1 films have aged a bit, and for the first Captain America, when I go and watch that, it's an incredibly ridiculous film. I mean, Elrond as a Nazi.
It's Red Skull.
It's Red Skull, but I was never convinced by it. When he took his mask off, I always thought that he was putting a mask on. It had the reverse effect. It looked
Because he's an Australian actor, you notice them more than American actors. They just stick out.
They stick out a little bit. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
Although this Australian sure sticks out. Good old Chris Hemsworth with Thor. And so I was dead keen with Phase 1. I loved Phase 1, and I was really excited where it was going because I'd come onto Phase 1 on the back of all the X-Men films, and it was great. Then the first Avengers came out, and I didn't like it.
That is surprising. That's very surprising.
I was bored with Loki as the baddie again, and it just felt like CGI smashing cities. It just felt a bit too, I know it's not by Michael Bay, but it just reminded me of the Michael Bay Transformer films too much. And so then I found it hard to maintain the enthusiasm all throughout Phase 2. I sort of jumped back in with Civil War, and after that, just family and getting to the cinema became too hard.
Civil War is the best Avengers film, as many people say.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I loved it a lot. But
Captain America 3, though, it's technically.
Okay, yeah, but there's more Robert Downey Jr. in it than there is Steve Rogers. Here's the thing: I'm shocked that you didn't like the first Avengers. When I watched it, it was like take the feeling you get when you watch a crossover episode of CSI, and then multiply that by 1,000, because you're seeing characters you actually care about. You have Thor, Iron Man, the Hulk, Black Widow, even though she was kind of useless in the film, and who's the other one?
Hawkeye.
And Hawkeye, who was also kind of useless.
They sort of buddy Black Widow and Hawkeye. They're like half a superhero each. You put them together, and they're the equivalent of the big four.
Yeah, so they're equivalent. They can take on or match one of the others. Yeah, it was amazing. I was shaking in the cinemas when I watched it because of you see all these characters, and the build up to it was amazing. I don't know what on earth you could have not liked about it. I'm actually slightly offended.
I'm willing to give it a second go, and I probably will, because superhero movies, they're a dime a dozen now, and they're in the bargain basement bin in all the DVD shops, and so I can pick them up for $10 and give it a go. And so that's exactly what I did with Infinity War and Endgame. And so I just thought, I don't know, my son was really getting into the Avengers, and I just thought I might as well give Infinity War a go. And I saw it for cheap, and I loved it. And the reason I loved it was because of Thanos.
Yeah.
This is Thanos' film.
Yeah.
The Avengers are there, and they're doing stuff, but it's all about his obsessive quest to rid the galaxy of half of its population in his, I guess it's his militant environmentalist quest.
How did you feel about that change in motivation? Because I haven't read the comics, but at least my understanding of reading wiki pages and videos, all the analysis YouTube stuff, was that he was supposed to have been in love with some crazy person called Mistress Death, and there were some theories that they were going to replace Mistress Death with Hela from Thor Ragnarok. And
Is that Kate Blanchett?
Yeah, Kate Blanchett, who was amazing in that, and I thought there wasn't enough of her in that film. I mean, all the Marvel films have been criticised consistently as having villains that are not as good or as interesting as DC. But that was one of the examples where you go, I actually like that. It's cliched villain, but pulled off pretty well. It's by Kate Blanchett. You can't really... And she was playing the anti-Galadriel in that film. They were so referencing that by covering her in black. But, as I said, I don't... personally, I don't... what were we talking about again?
Villains,
yeah.
And why I like Thanos, because...
I thought that was going to be an interesting story, and I was a little disappointed that wasn't in there.
Oh, okay, so a bit of the love story.
Yeah, the love story, and I thought there was in my mind, I had this fan fiction that there was going to be, this preamble to Avengers: Infinity War, where you would see Thanos and Odin and Hela fighting, and then Hela beats the crap out of him, and he's just awed by her, and she, gives him some lecture about philosophy of death, and he's entranced by it, and it changes his character. But I like the environmentalist angle, but I feel like it can be picked a bit too much. Like, why would you kill people? Why not invest in renewable energy?
He's like doing the whole Noah's Ark, but he's not wiping out all of humanity. It's in the universe. It's just half. So, but he's got that benevolent. He's a mad god, demigod, semigod, whatever you want to call him. But
Tyson.
He had a certain dignity and gravitas to him, and that's amazing because he was CGI. Josh Brolin, who sort of looked like Homer Simpson and Bruce Willis's love child.
That is astonishingly accurate.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen all the memes, but I was just thinking, this dude's Homer. Oh, you know who you actually reminded me a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it Rex Harrison from Pawn Stars? I can give you not Rex Harrison. The dude from Pawn Stars.
Yeah, he's got the beat. Yeah.
I'll give you $20 for it. Yeah. An Infinity Stone? Yeah, I'll give you $5 for it. Best I can do. Rick Harrison.
Oh, that guy. I know.
Yeah, and so, but it was his film. Like when he sacrificed his daughter, and he's just so single-minded in his belief, and you believe with him. And so the ending. Of course there's a spoiler, but when he wins, when everyone just slowly dissolves away, and it just leaves it as that cliffhanger, for me, that was on par with Empire Strikes Back. That was, Luke Skywalker, no, you're not my father.
I think a lot of people were calling this the Empire Strikes Back of this whole series. I like Thanos a lot, but what happened at the beginning of Endgame I found shocking. That they and not only did they chop his head off at the start of the film, but the switch you got in characters, it's how do I describe it? It's sort of like
he was two-dimensional.
They reversed the character development, and I didn't see that as a bad thing because he came across as more menacing. He didn't have that sort of that empathy you sort of had with him because you don't have that scene with him and Gamora. It's all before he makes that sacrifice. It's this determined Thanos who's searching for all those Infinity Stones, and he will kill anyone for it. And
he's just a brute.
His introduction scene was just frightening. His introduction scene in Avengers: Infinity War was I felt that was probably one of the scariest moments when he beats up Hulk like that, and you think you can't do that.
I'm sort of out of sequence. I haven't seen Ragnarok yet.
Yeah.
I know. What sort of geek am I? I don't play video games. Haven't seen
all
the bloody Marvel
Ragnarok.
But Ragnarok ends and Infinity War begins. It's like straight after,
which I found to be. I think a lot of people found that a little shocking because Ragnarok was a film that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. An end that people thought that I thought when I watched it was well deserved. All the Asgardians are leaving. They get to have their happily ever after. They can go to Earth and live in Denmark. That's what I thought. And then it gets absolutely detonated, destroyed, decimated by by Thanos, and you think, well, that was a bit of a you go into
big things are coming.
Yeah, exactly.
They do that in the comics. They do that in the comics, and they do that. The final page, you know, you've got something big's coming. You know, it's a big crossover. I mean, these are the. I've lived through all the crossover X-Men events, and so the Avengers crossover films, yeah, it's the same thing. Well, I'll talking about the pathos and dignity of Infinity War. I found the bit that got me more than anything was the Johnny scene with Spider-Man, and you got the tough, grizzled veteran of Robert Downey Jr. You know, and he's got his eager young sidekick,
Johnny,
and Johnny, don't die! It's getting dark, Sarge. And that was amazing. And I liked the fact that that was almost reversed at the end of Endgame.
Yeah.
When
he gets the hug.
Iron Man is basically gone. He's all sort of, his ears melted and he's finished. And so then it almost reminded me of like a medieval knight of old. And that's what Iron Man is. And so his head captain comes, War Machine's there to say goodbye, his wife. And then you've also got Spider-Man. Spider-Man is like the Percival to King Arthur. He's the young protege, and he's like, "We beat him, Mr. Stark."
Yeah.
You did it. And so it was like a reverse Johnny scene. For the supreme sacrifice, where and so it.
No, I get that.
That was a great moment, and for me also, you know, I sort of knew that Captain America was going to go back in time because I was so cut up at the end of First Avenger, where he didn't get to be with his girl. That hurt me. And the fact that they fixed that, he got to go home, be the war hero, have his girl.
He got to go home because Robert Downey Jr. had enough clout to steal his storyline from the comic books, which is the death of Captain America. And that's Robert Downey Jr. And look,
the audacity.
I salute you. He deserved it. Well, I felt like Robert Downey Jr., he was holding up this franchise from Phase 1. And Phase 2, after Captain America Winter Soldier, you started having more developed superheroes that could have their standalone films that were capable of reaching 800 million, 1 billion, 1.2 billion, 1 point whatever it was, 3-4 billion at the box office for Civil War. Now Captain Marvel, which is relatively, it's an okay superhero film, like in comparison to all the other ones. That's getting 1.1, 1.2, or how much it was. Spider-Man now. But going back to that scene where Peter Parker is dusted. He is dusted, I think is the phrase that they were using. What annoys me so much is now that Spider-Man isn't in the MCU anymore.
Is that official?
Here's the thing.
Like Sony and Disney have been sort of squabbling. And
there are corporate maybe that's how negotiations work. There are leaks, and that Sony or Marvel leak something so they could that they'd have PR to use in their negotiations. But I think now it's every day we don't get the confirmation. Oh, don't worry, he's in the MCU. We've renegotiated it. It really affects the quality of Endgame, because the whole reason. And this is not my idea. I mean, I saw this online, and as soon as I saw it, and I heard this point, I can't get it out of my head.
Uncle Ben going to die a fourth time? We're going to get
not that as well. That's
another reboot thanks to Sony. Remember those videos where they're saying we're going to reboot just before Garfield finished, and they said Tom Holland's coming, and they did this video where he's laughing. We're going to reboot it again. So there's only one place to go. If you're going to get rid of Tom Holland, then it's Miles Morales. You've got to completely change it. But
they don't have the rights to him.
I know. He's Marvel, so Marvel's Disney. They should be able to do it. Miles Morales, because we've already got Falcon taking over Captain America.
Yeah.
And so they're sort of doing a changing of the guard. So you could have, Peter Parker's story ends, and now we do a new... The only way I could watch a new origin story of Spider-Man is if it was a new Spider-Man, Miles Morales, not Peter Parker.
But they already had that with the Spider-Verse. I feel like that would be... that they would just be playing the same tune. But like with the Avengers, it totally undercuts Avengers Endgame, because the whole reason Robert Downey Jr. and Tony, they might as well be the same person. The whole reason why Tony Stark, made the time machine, or was because he wanted to see Peter Parker again. I mean, that was what Happy Hogan said in Spider-Man Far From Home. And now that he's gone, when I go back and I watch that film, I think this is a train wreck now.
Now, is it? Oh no, it's the future maybe, but you just view Endgame as that. It's
A
full
standalone.
stop.
Yeah,
That's,
full
no,
stop.
it's the end of the franchise. And like when you're collecting comics, you got to decide: am I out? Am I done? I don't know. I mean, some people have collected comics their whole life, but for me, like collecting the X-Men, there's been periods where I said, these are my classic X-Men, these are my classic X-Men story. They've got a new writer, I'm done with it. You know? And so for me,
it's an issue with canon as well. What's considered canon now?
Yeah,
is when they start messing with multiverse theories and timelines. I like having consistency, and this is part of the reason why I hated a lot of the Wolverine standalone films was because they convoluted the timeline, and so when you went to
The
first
X-Men.
class, it was just totally ridiculous. I'm like, Ian McKellen
ages.
is supposed to be somewhere else when this is happening, but Michael Fassbender's doing something different. It clashed so much. I couldn't respect what I was watching, and I feel that this is not as bad as that. But if Spider-Man leaves the franchise, I feel like I can't go back and watch Endgame because I'll just be thinking this character's motivation is totally bent on Spider-Man staying in the MCU, and if they're going to exit him out with some,
and he did, and he lived happily ever after, and his adventures.
He's got PTSD and Far From Home. They haven't finished that. He's still got it. But look, it was a good film when I watched it, and again, I shook through it because I got I don't know what you call them, the fan jitters. You just watch them, and that being said, I do feel that they're getting to a point where there's what's the word? Power creep. The powers that these characters have, it's slowly getting more and more and more, and each character now has thermonuclear capacity.
God mode.
And that happened with Scarlet Witch. It's happened with Captain Marvel. Thor. It's happening with Thor. And I can understand it with Thor.
He's sort of a god.
Yeah, he's a god, and there's some justification there. But as soon as I saw Scarlet Witch pick up Thanos and start squeezing him to death, I thought,
he was such a bad tough guy in Infinity War. Yeah, it's the inconsistency.
Why didn't she do that? Like when he was gonna get the
kill Vision.
Yeah, kill Vision.
Yeah.
She could have
Revenge motivated her, and just
but not the love that she had for her cyborg.
So that's the issue where you've got multiple writers and multiple films. If it's one person's unique vision all the way through, you get that consistency. But when it's a lot of other people picking things up and taking it places, it goes in areas which can seem inconsistent.
Yeah.
I suppose that's why people got so excited about Peter Jackson being the only director for all of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit films.
Yes.
That, say what you like about The Hobbit and the weather effect, but that at least had its consistent vision.
Don't even talk about The Hobbit. But he had Fran Walsh he had his wife with him, which along the way. So it's not as if I want like this George Lucas effect where he's the only nutcase that's capable of determining what's going to go on with a film and everything's CGI.
We saw how that ended.
We saw that end with it. But with The Hobbit, there were reasons why that happened. Peter Jackson, he released this special featurette, which he actually said that when he was taking over for Guillermo del Toro, he had no pre-production, which is crazy. You're producing 3 films that each of them, as an estimate, are going to make $1 billion each, and you're not even given a year of pre-production. You've got 6 weeks to prep for it. But for here, I feel like it's so big now. I don't know how they can say, let's scale back. They're scaling forward. They've got Disney.
Phase 4 has to be bigger and better. Where does it end?
Yeah, they've got much more story now.
Yeah, it's sort of when to take a break sometimes. Yeah. And the fact that the Disney machine is cranking film after film, new Star Wars films, new superhero films, there's the demand. I do feel that we'll get we will get quantity over quality.
Yes. We're getting that already. I did not... Captain Marvel was an okay film, but I didn't... When I was watching through it, I didn't like it. I didn't like it as a hero story because she doesn't... That point where you cross the hero's threshold, it's supposed to be a satisfying moment. Like, that takes a montage in Karate Kid. That takes time, but she gets it within an explosion. And I understand other characters do experience that, like Spider-Man gets bitten by a spider, but there is at least time he attunes himself to the power. He doesn't get to destroy things.
Look how long it took Superman in the Richard Donner film to become Superman. It took at least the first full hour of the film for him to stop being, the awkward teenager, then his Fortress of Solitude sequence. He goes to Metropolis, and the first amazing thing he does is catches the bullet when Margot Kidder or Lois Lane and him get mugged. And then that moment where, she's, Superman, help me, with a smoker's voice, and the helicopter's about to go off the skyscraper, and he opens his shirt, and you just know, it's on.
Yeah.
And that is a goosebump moment, years later. And then Superman's here, because you've sat through, the struggle, and he's Superman.
Yeah. But with Captain Marvel and Scarlet Witch as well, even though I love those, at least when I read about those characters online, the comic book versions sound a lot more interesting. I mean, Scarlet Witch being a mutant, I think they're going to start, because now they've got the rights,
they've got the
they can start doing that. But just glowy things, like they're the characters where, glowy stuff comes out of their hands that burns things and rips things apart, and it's so undefined, and it's
magic. It's magic. It's like, I wasn't a big fan of Doctor Strange. Space magic.
I love Doctor Strange though, because I looked
no
at
rules to it, no logic.
No, but I looked at it and I said to myself that there's an art form to it. Like, I could appreciate that there was it was a discipline. There was something that needed to be devoted to. He was reading books. There was an art style to it as well. That it had a very specific aesthetic. But with those powers, it's this glowy stuff. It's Godzilla blue flame. It's radioactive breath. It doesn't really
wipe it out.
It just wipes out things. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I did enjoy Endgame, but all this Spider-Man stuff has sort of put a sour taste in my mouth. Yeah.
Well, so only time will tell what Phase 4 will bring, and will we eventually get a decent... Oh, see, I like the Fantastic Four movies, but now they've got the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, you could have a true gigantic crossover where there's just too many superheroes, they just can't all fit in.
That did happen at Endgame. You did get that shot where it was just this vomit of everyone in, and you had 2 seconds of it.
That's only a partial version of the entire Marvel universe.
Oh my god. The X-Men universe is almost as big as what we've just...
X-Men universe is gigantic, and then you get the secondary X-Men, the X-Force and X-Factor.
Yeah.
And the X-Men roster keeps changing as well. There's so many, and every time there's a new writer, a new edition, they choose different characters. But it is huge. And so, time will tell. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I can enjoy these films with my son. He loves them.
But there's one thing we can both agree on, and this will probably be our last note, which is Ant-Man is probably the worst superhero, and I hate those films. And
my wife likes Ant-Man.
And they're so boring. I don't know what people like about them, and I think if you like Ant-Man, there's probably something wrong with you. I don't know. No, don't you get that away from me.
Over and out.
Cheeseburger out. Okay.
Let's see what that looks like.
I have to insult the audience a bit.